All right, that's probably enough. Oh, wait, is there one more person? Ah. All right, that's probably enough time for waiting. We're just gonna get ahead and started. I just want to start by thank you all for joining us for this June Smart 2019 webinar. This one is on Internships 101. So it's going to serve as like an introductory webinar for anyone who's thinking about internships, wants to know what they are, wants to know how to find them. And we have some great speakers up today. So to start off, we're going to do a quick staff introduction. All right, Melissa, if you would.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this afternoon's webinar. My name is Melissa May, and I'm the director of the GMS program, the Gates Millennium Scholars Program for us at API Scholars, as well as our programming department. So welcome, and I'm excited for our conversation.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ariane Martin, Program Manager with GMS API Scholars, and welcome you and look forward to listening to our speakers, and hopefully you have some questions and enjoy the topic. Thank you.
And my name is Michael Blakely. I'm a program assistant at GMS for APA Scholars. And I'm really excited to speak to you, to go through this with you all. And fun fact, before I started working here, I was an intern here, and I also interned at the NAACP, as well as OCA Asia Pacific American Advocates. So I am well experienced when it comes to being an intern. All right, and to start off, just to give an overview of the day, we're gonna do a 30-minute presentation from Maria Elena Marcano, who is an Internships Compliance Coordinator at the California State University East Bay. And then after her, there will be a short presentation from Julie Wu, a Program Associate at APIA Vote. And then we have a few questions prepared, but we will prefer to go through the audience Q&A. So any questions that you have while they're presenting, hold on to them, and we will be going through them at the end. All right. So our first guest speaker is Maria Elena Marcano, the Internships Compliance Coordinator at California State University East Bay. She has an extensive background working for over 15 years in higher education. She's a native to San Francisco Bay Area, but she earned a BA in Broadcast Communications and a Master's in Education, Equity, and Social Justice from San Francisco State University. She served as the Academic Advising Specialist for the Office of Undergraduate Advising, and then served as Academic Advisor and Coordinator of New Student Orientation and Retention Services. And it was in that role that she discovered a passion for student affairs and student leadership. As the Internship Compliance Coordinator, she's developed a campus-wide internship compliance processes and guidelines for faculty, staff, students, and employers, while strategically working to establish student journeys and pipelines for each student to obtain an internship and/or a job in their career field prior to graduation. And with that, I'll let you start.
Thanks so much, Michael. Hi, everyone. Am I okay as far as the audio?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thanks everyone for having me. Like Michael said, I'm Maria Elena Marcano from CSU East Bay. We're gonna jump right in and talk about internships today. And I think what's most important is, is really just trying to define what exactly is an internship first, so that we're able to I don't know what's going on, to identify what an internship isn't. And so most importantly, I'm not sure why this is going back and forth, but the NACE guidelines, the National Association for Colleges and Employers, which is a professional organization that us career folks normally work with and use as far as their data.
Sorry about this. I'm just gonna go to.
Should I keep kind of going and then I'll jump back on, or?
Does that work this way?
Okay. So just wanting to kind of define what internships were.
Why is it doing this?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe we should just start there and we could just not go back to that first slide, I guess.
All right.
Is that okay? So, so what's an internship? You know, an internship is defined as an experiential learning opportunity that integrates knowledge and theory. So what does that really mean? That means, what are you learning in the classroom, and how can you connect this with an experience offsite in a professional environment? And how do you connect the two through an experience? That also allows you to develop real relevant life skills and career skills that can hopefully professionally advance you in the future. So looking at the definition of what an internship is, what an internship is not, and this is something that's good to know, because we don't want you out there looking for internships that don't clearly define what type of experience that they are advertising and offering, because you don't want to get set into an experience that you don't really learn much going in. And so what I have here on the slide is, you know, anything that's very unskilled labor or low entry level clerical work that doesn't have any kind of connection to your major or your career of interest. These are the types of, and I'm talking an internship experience that 90% this is the work you're doing. There's always going to be the internship experience that has a little bit of this clerical experience, but that shouldn't be the 95% of your experience. And then you should also have a site supervisor, a mentor in place, opportunity to network in this experience, and then also an opportunity. Hello? I don't know, I heard somebody talk. Oh, and then in regards to looking at an experience where it shows kind of vague and undefined experiences, or unsupervised where it says, you know, you will be working alone. These are types of experiences that should show red flags to you that, am I going to be in a real learning environment? Is there going to be someone supporting me in this experience? Is there going to be opportunity for me to reflect out and reflect with someone? And if those things are not listed in the actual job description of an internship experience, then again, red flag, consider moving on to a different type of opportunity and apply for something that really speaks to what you're going to learn and what you're going to gain from that experience. So why do an internship? Everyone has their own personal reason why they think an internship is a great experience or a great opportunity. But most importantly, you know, these internship experiences help you, and I'm sure you've probably heard this in some way, shape, or form, that you can test out your career. You can test drive your career. It gives you an opportunity to look at the environment. Is this an environment that you want to be in? Is this an occupation you want to be in? Is this the type of culture, work environment that you want to be in? And not every job is, you know, the end all be all for that career field. However, it gives you an opportunity to see what it would be like and what type of work and work scope that you would have in this experience. And then most importantly, the opportunity to network, be able to build your experiences and expand your resume is very important, specifically because we are in such a competitive environment nowadays that it's a great opportunity to get a kickstart in building your resume early. I know at a career fair, we were speaking to a career panel of employers, and one of the employers through a construction management firm said, you know, I am not interested in hiring a recent graduate without internship experience. And one of the students had asked, how come? And they said, well, because I want to hire someone who shows me that they're passionate about my career field early in their experience and they're committed to this experience. So something to think about if employers out there are thinking, you know, they want someone who's passionate and interested in getting an early start. Internships may be that way to go for you, or getting an entry-level job position. So one or the other. So just look, you know, going back to what employers have said, these are some findings that NACE have showed in regards to, you know, why get an internship? Why get an internship? Because most likely, studies show that if you get an internship experience, you're more likely to get hired at that same job or possibly a position within that career field versus someone who does not have an internship experience. And then also in regards to those that get internship experiences, those graduating college are more likely to have a job waiting for them, which is not typically the case with our current system of graduates now. Usually when you're graduating, people are still looking for that job placement. So having the internship experience definitely gives you that step ahead and early placement process for jobs and opportunities in your career field. So what type of internship should you pursue and possibly look for, and how should you do that? I think, initially it's about asking yourself, okay, what career do I want to be in? And some of you may not know exactly which career. You may be still an undeclared major, or you may be wanting to shift your major to a different major depending on where you're at in your career, your college career. But asking yourself what interests you. If you haven't taken a personality assessment, consider taking strengths or Myers-Briggs to gauge kind of what your interest levels are and how that maps to career. If you are unaware of this, most of your career centers at your colleges offer some type of personality assessment. They may even pay for it. There is usually a fee associated with a personality assessment, but there are free assessments out there, and I will provide that later on in the chat for you as a resource. But definitely start to ask yourself, what type of career area do you want to be in? What type of employers you're considering, because it's important to know what connects with you, what's connecting, what interests you, and then most importantly, are there more than one industry that you're interested in wanting to be in? And if you haven't done a vision board or a vision wall, I would strongly suggest, and there's different ways of doing it. If you're involved in Pinterest or if you Google how to do a vision board, consider looking that up and trying to figure out what connects with you as far as how do you make this idea of finding an internship become a reality. And it's about organizing your thoughts and doing a little bit of research. And know that this is very student driven. It's you driven. I always tell our students, this is very much you driven. You will probably not find many career counselors out there in your colleges that will walk you through every step of the way. A lot of this is you looking and doing that research, you applying and setting some goals, but organizing is most important. I would strongly suggest considering both paid and unpaid internships. It's a big question, right? Do I have the time to do an unpaid internship? And then what's the benefit of doing an unpaid internship versus doing a paid internship? I think both are valuable. I feel depending on your career goals, sometimes taking an unpaid internship will really pay off. And then some may not. Again, it's depending on if you find an internship that provides you the experiences that you need to move forward. But going back to organizing your thoughts, suggestion would be possibly doing a vision board or creating an Excel sheet that really captures this data that you're doing as far as research. Because as you're looking into companies and looking into employers and industries, you're also looking for what are their internship experiences that they're offering, when are their deadlines, when are their applications available, and typing that and copying and pasting that into an Excel form so that it allows you kind of a roadmap of when you need to dedicate some time to submitting applications, to applying for applications, or also keeping a lookout for responses. And then that also goes to, there may be an opportunity that you apply to 10, 15, possibly 20 internship opportunities, and you may only hear back maybe 2, 5, or 6 applications. Companies might respond to you saying, hey, let's bring you in for an interview, or you're a candidate for this opportunity, there is that I would say threshold of what you would say rejection, and I heard there was a question about how do you deal with that rejection and that coping. And part of it is understanding that this is just a part of the process. Don't get yourself down if it doesn't work out your first application, and continue that process, because keep applying, because there are sometimes between 200 and 300 applicants. And for some internships, they receive over 1,000 applicants. So, you know, the idea is that if you're not hearing anything back from these employers, consider going into your career center at your college and ask to speak to a career advisor. Show them what you're sending, show them your emails, show them your cover letter, and get some feedback on what you need to do to refine your application so that you can refine and be more prepared for that next round of applications that you send out. So when you're talking to your career advisor, these are obviously some sectors and fields and industries. If you've never asked yourself what section, sector do I want to be in, what field do I want to be in, this is just a list of areas to consider, and to also consider doing some research, because this is a time that you're trying to ask yourself, where do I want to be in the future? Where do I want to put in some time as for an internship or an entry-level position? But most importantly, what connects to me? How do I want to connect to my career field? Because sometimes, even though you may be a criminal justice major, you may not want to, your interest may be in a different field, but utilizing your criminal justice experience and education. So nowadays, we are able to utilize our majors in different ways, and they overlap at times. And so being able to know that it's not just one area that you can apply to, be open to other sectors and fields that may provide you a really great experience. So looking for an internship opportunity, I would say I broke it down into kind of two main strategies. I think finding existing internships and creating your own internship are two different strategies on how to figure out what road you want to go down, but also knowing that there's two that exist, and then we'll go more into that. So currently, and I gave an example at Cal State East Bay, we are on Handshake. Some of your colleges may be on Handshake, which is our job board that we have in our Career Center. And our students are able to go onto our Career Center website, log in, and look at all of the jobs and internships that are available. I also put on here Cal State S4, which is our homegrown CSU internship and service learning platform that all of our internships and service learning courses for academic credit are listed on. So all of our employers that have contracts with our university are listed there, so our students can go and actually reach out to those companies or nonprofit agencies to do internship work at those sites. So depending on your college, I would suggest looking and finding out what platforms your university is using, and to utilize all of them. Locate and research these platforms and utilize them, create a profile, and make sure that your profile is complete, because employers are looking at complete profiles because they're not just waiting for you to apply, they're also looking for you as well, especially on these new platforms like Handshake. Academic departments have usually, some of them will have their own career counselors or a career center within departments. So that's something to also consider utilizing as well, because they also may have some stronger relationships that they've personally built with companies to hopefully pipeline opportunities for their students into these other companies that they have relationships with, or also research projects with. So consider speaking to your academic advisor or department as well to see what type of opportunities are there. In regards to just our internship websites, we have a website that lists all of the internship websites that are out there, and we update it every few months just because, you know, there's new websites and companies that are coming on board. I'll also attach that in the chat area at the end of this presentation so that you'll have some internship websites to start at, to be able to start looking through your research. And then companies and websites, again, this is student driven, so locating the companies that you want to possibly intern at and go to those company websites and look to see what opportunities they have in their HR portal and or their internship website pages, because sometimes they only post their internship information in the actual like employment section, or some of them actually have websites that speak directly to their internships and their internship experiences. So being mindful that you need to look at 2 different places on the company's website just to make sure you're not missing out on information. And in regards to professional association websites, I initially began talking about NACE. There are definitely hundreds of professional associations that link to your specific career. You just need to do the research to find out which type of organizations or national associations represent your career of choice, and looking into them and seeing, is there an opportunity for a student to have membership? And usually there is, and it's usually at a discounted rate, and or you can apply for a financial like aid or stipend to be able to attend conferences or attend free webinars, something like this as well. So be mindful, go on those websites and look to see what type of resources and also free resources that they may have. I would say, just like Michael said earlier in his introduction, you know, I applied for scholarships during my undergrad years, and they helped fund me while I was doing an unpaid internship. And so that helps supplement my funding. So definitely keep into consideration applying for scholarships as well if you are interested or going down the route of an unpaid internship to help supplement your unpaid internship experience. Yeah. So creating internships, this really comes into after the fact that you have done your research, you've looked and applied for internships, you may not be getting as many callbacks as you thought you had initially thought would happen, and you're saying, okay, what am I going to do? Time is kind of ticking. What can I do to create an internship experience for myself? Or you may say, hey, let me, depending on my career of choice, I would like to create an internship experience, possibly because I see a connection in my local community or through a company. And so I think part of creating an internship experience, it's because somebody wants to create an opportunity for themselves and go out there and make a connection to create an internship opportunity with an actual agency. So how do you do that? So thinking about what would the project be, what would the scope of work be, and answering these questions and creating a formal proposal, I would say, you know, and then being able to either make a phone call, send an email, or walk in and speak to the manager of the location, asking for a meeting to hopefully meet and discuss a possible internship placement opportunity. Depending on if you're getting credit for this internship opportunity or not, there may be also other paperwork that needs to be filled out by the university in order for this to happen. So be mindful of if that plays into creating an internship experience. What you want to do is be able to create a proposal that really connects and links your major career career field of interest to the actual project that you would possibly be doing in your internship experience. You also want to add layers of networking and mentorship. And then also what's most important here is that there's a mutual gain from both the employer and from the intern. And so your hope is to leave with a letter of recommendation and possibly, and I'll give you an example, we had a graphic design student that connected with an employer who he wanted to do a marketing campaign for the employer, and his ask was, can I utilize the artwork for my CV after this internship? And it turned out to be a really great experience for that student. And then I would say definitely going to networking events and social events, and as you attend these networking and social events or career fairs, ask if there is opportunity to create an internship opportunity at their site or through your possible networks. Looking at your own network, and if you have people within your family or people that are in your current work environment that might possibly host an internship experience, that's something to consider as well. And then again, creating that proposal and putting it on paper, it will help you send that out more easily so that hopefully when you send it out via email, you'll be able to communicate via email a little bit more effectively because it's clearly stated your purpose, what your project scope would be, and then also the time, you know, the start and end time of the internship expectation. And these are just some examples of how students have created their own internship experience. And I think, you know, it really speaks to students being very creative. We had a student that had, that knew 3 different languages and approached a company here locally in Hayward and was able to create an internship experience where he translated their training materials in 2 other languages and was able to utilize that as part of his CV and was able to get a letter of recommendation from his experience. And through that, I just actually recently heard the update about this, is he's now been brought on board to actually manage their interns this next year. So it's been a really great experience, and it speaks to that data I spoke about earlier, is that you just don't know sometimes how one internship can really bump you into another experience, possibly with that company, or also just another professional development experience through another company because of that initial experience. And so this just kind of like solidifies that data that yes, it does work by having these internship experiences. So as you're starting to think about, okay, well, how do I apply for an internship experience? We talked a little bit about, you know, looking at opportunities through your career center, looking at companies for their positions and postings, but what do you need to do and get ready to apply for this internship experience? It's very important that you are ready, all of your materials are complete and intact. And what does that, I guess, what does that mean? I think initially, since you are all college students, go to your career center, meet with a career advisor, have them look over your resume. If you don't have a resume, start to develop a resume. There are several free tools out there that can give you a free format. They could also scan your resume and give you some free feedback. But most importantly, try to get a resume and a cover letter together so that you are prepared to apply when you're starting your research. And then start to think about, what does your messaging look like? When you're sending out messages, make sure that your emails are produced in a way that they're professional, that it's not, hey, this is my application, it's, you know, dear blah, blah, blah. Be authentic in your responses, so can still be who you are and show your personality, but definitely remind yourself that this is a professional opportunity that you're applying to, and so you want to definitely approach the application process in a professional way. So with that, thinking about relevant projects that you've worked on, or if you have some courses coming up and you're thinking about how can I use my coursework to really enhance my resume. Think about these things so that you can put them in your resume, and then also challenge yourself this next semester or year, depending on where you are in your education, to do some great work this next year so that you can put it on your resume. So then you can talk about it. You can put it on your LinkedIn account. And then also, if you haven't done any volunteer work, consider connecting with your Center for Community Engagement or your service learning office, if you have one, to do some work within your field, again, to get that experience. In regards to getting your materials ready to submit, it's important that you have a few people look over them. I would say go to your academic advisor, go to your career advisor, and then if you have a mentor, ask your mentor to review your resume, your cover letter, because it's important to get different feedback so that you're confident in what your materials look like. And then I would say lastly, if you are applying for academic credit for an internship experience, be sure that you are aware of their deadlines and their office deadlines, because I'll give you an example. We have dates and deadlines, and sometimes companies don't align with our dates and deadlines. And unfortunately, sometimes some students, even though they get an experience and want academic credit for that experience, we're unable to provide that because of the dates and deadlines. They don't align well. So depending on your university and depending on their policy, that may or may not apply, but just be mindful of those dates and deadlines, and also forms that you may need to submit in order to gain academic credit. And so I would say, in closing, in regards to ensuring your successful internship experience, we definitely want you to set some real goals. And this goes to that, coping just in case, if you don't get a lot of responses initially, but making sure that, I'm going to apply for 15 internships, and I'm hoping that, 3 of them respond back to me, right? Setting some realistic goals, because most likely not all 15 are going to get back to you. However, if they all do, that's amazing. But also setting goals in regards to when you want to do an internship experience, and if it works well with your academic program requirements. Because if you haven't done so, you want to look at, are you going to have a large load in regards to core courses this semester? You may not want to have an internship that semester, or you might want to do an internship over the summer. And so you're looking at summer internships. So setting real goals that you can attain is something that's very important, and that goes to that vision board that we were talking about, organizing your thoughts and your priorities in regards to work, internship, and coursework. All of that has to align in order for it to work well. You want to be able to communicate with your supervisor once placed. And then also, if there are any communication breakdowns, you want to be able to have an opportunity to circle back with your supervisor, your mentor, or your advisor on campus for feedback. So be open to asking for feedback, asking how to handle a situation, and being able to work on your communication skills. There's research out there that shows that we all need to work on our communication skills, right? And part of it is that being open to working on that. So being professional, being positive, and being productive is being open to learning. And being professional is, not just wearing a suit or dressing dressing very sharp every day. Professional is about walking in and saying good morning and saying goodbye at the end of the day. Professional is turning your projects in on time. Professional can mean networking and being friendly in the office and building bridges. It's not just about the look and the exterior. It's about that well-rounded professional, and then being positive and productive. That's ultimately the incentive of an internship experience. Is we want you to gain something from this experience, and we want you to leave knowing that you are a better professional from having this experience. Changing perspectives, or being open to perspectives, is definitely a challenge, you know. And so challenging yourself in regards to work-life balance, being able to make sure that you are getting your work done on time, but also making time for yourself. We try to say that it is work, but it's also fun too. So having a good personality and making fun of the experience and having fun, that it's just as important. Ask for what you need and ask for clear direction. If you find yourself not being clear or kind of walking out of a meeting going, I still don't know what to do or why I'm doing this, it's important that you know your why. And it's important that you know that you have the right to ask for what that is. And then document your work. Sometimes in internships, we do a lot of work and we don't document it. And so we forget what we've accomplished and what we've done. And so what you want to do is be able to organize yourself in a way that you're documenting what you're doing so that you can look back and go, wow, I did all of this work and I'm very proud of myself for doing it. And, you know, I would say lastly, you know, go into that experience doing your best work, having the best attitude, and taking it day by day, because sometimes internships are tough, you know, and it's a lot of work, and sometimes it can be very challenging, but it's very rewarding in the end. And completing your internship and beyond, I think this is important because sometimes it can be challenging, and sometimes you might find yourself in an internship where it may be challenging to a point that you might not want to continue. We strongly suggest that you talk to your supervisor and end on a good note. Thank your employers and then also your colleagues. Don't just send a thank you to your supervisor, but send a thank you to your colleagues that you've worked with during your internship experience. It's important because it's a small world, and you know, we cross bridges a lot, especially within the same career field. I actually just had two stories on LinkedIn from colleagues that I knew that bumped into their old interns that they had 15 plus years ago, and their comment was, I'm so glad we had a good relationship, right? You know, so always keeping a good relationship open and continuing that open window in the sense of saying, you know, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'd love to keep in contact. And so that's, again, building your network. And then keeping track of your connections. Stay in touch with them. So for example, if the holidays are approaching and you're leaving, send a holiday card. Or if you get a new job, let them know that you've been hired in a new placement. And then most importantly, as you're exiting your experience, definitely try to leave with a reference and possibly gain a letter of recommendation if possible. And if you do any type of project work, ask for the approval to utilize that project work or showcase it on your LinkedIn account if possible. In regards to the career resources, going back to your career center, most of your career centers should offer workshops in person and online. They should also offer career and internship fairs. We also offer career and internship fairs throughout the year on our campus, and we also drill down to the actual majors. So if you're not aware of this, you may want to contact your major department in your career center to see when your career fairs are, and then also if there are any specific career fairs to your major, because that will help you in regards to networking and when those internships are available. Again, going back to scheduling a career appointment with your career advisor, talk with a career counselor, build and improve your resume and cover letter if you haven't done so. And usually on your Career Center website, there should be free resources or layouts or formats for you to review and at least have a starting point. Our website is available and public, and like I've told other students, go to other universities' websites and look at their Career Center, because other Career Centers have other opportunities and free resources that are public for use. So definitely utilize those resources. It's about, you know, getting out there and doing your research. And then most importantly, I don't see the job binder anymore, but as much, but you know, there are some departments that still use paper or like job boards or job binders or online platforms. So definitely locate where those are on your campus and utilize them as much as possible. Thank you so much for your time. I'm gonna see if there's any questions. Again, here's my contact information, and I am available if you wanted to reach out in the future. Good luck to you all on your internship searches.
Thank you so much, Maria Elena, for presenting. This is so much good information. As far as questions go, we're gonna move on to the next speaker. But so please hold on to your questions or type them up into the chat room so we can revisit them at the end. But with that being said, we're just gonna move on to Julie Wu. Julie Wu is a program associate at APIA Vote. She is a graduate of the Ohio State University with a BA in studio art. She has previously been involved with APIA Vote as an ambassador, a summer intern, and currently, well, as a program associate. And so during her time as an undergraduate student, she served as the president of the Asian American Association on her campus and has been actively involved with the Midwest Asian American Student Union, or MASU, as executive chairperson and vice conference director. And in her free time, Julie is interested in exploring the direct intersections between art and advocacy. Julie?
Hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for jumping on this call. And that was a wonderful presentation. I was actually like listening and I was like, oh, these are things that I relate to. And I really wish that I had that when I was still doing my internship. So thank you, Michael. As Michael mentioned, I have been involved with this organization, Asian and Pacific Islander American Vote, in many different capacities. I started off as part of their ambassador program while I was a junior, and then I became their intern, and then now I'm their programs associate. So that's like kind of a testament, kind of like what Michael said before, to kind of being hired where you were interning. So definitely be mindful of those opportunities. And so just a really quick background on this organization. We are a nonprofit and nonpartisan organization working with organizations throughout the nation to make sure that these communities are they're up to date and they're ready to implement voter registration, voter education, as well as census education for 2020. So that is our mission, and follow us on social media at APIA Vote. We go next slide, Michael. So I can talk a little bit about my internship at APIA Vote. That's kind of the lens as to which I'm kind of approaching this talk. This is very specific, I guess, to the DC API community, but also I think there are a lot of takeaways that apply to anywhere you go, regardless of whether or not it's nonprofit, for-profit, if it's small organization, large organization. I'll just go through a few bullet points, but I think my first piece of advice is to kind of widen your horizons as to like where you apply. So I was a studio art major, and I was at first just looking at like design internships, looking for like art opportunities, and those are pretty slim, especially when you're in the Midwest. And so I kind of broadened my horizons and looked further. I did a lot of student organizing in my time at Ohio State. And so API Vote was just something that I was just casually involved in, and I decided to see where it would take me. And I did end up landing the internship, and moving from Ohio to DC was a big jump for me, but I think it was also a really good learning experience. So one of the biggest things that I've gained throughout my internship was friendship. So I know you don't necessarily go to an internship for friendship, you go for experience and you go for work, just to get like experience with the work. But I think the opportunity to make authentic friendships was definitely something, the biggest gain that I was able to do. Like when you're working somewhere, you know, you kind of have to keep that work personal balance. But when you're an intern, not to say that you don't have that balance anymore, but you're immersed in this community and in this space full of other like-minded peers around your age, and I would definitely take advantage of that. I've made so many great friendships, and it's kind of carried over into my work life now, but it's nice to get to know people in the context of personal friends before working with them, in my opinion. So that was definitely one of the greatest takeaways for me. Network, that's more in a professional sense. I was able to meet a lot of different community leaders in my capacity as an intern at API Vote, as well as other students who did the same work on their campuses. So once I returned to campus, I was able to connect with them, and we were able to do a lot of collaborations. So that was really cool. And the third point, developing skill sets. So this screenshot is actually of a video that I was able to do for API Vote. We are a very small nonprofit, and there's not really, nobody asked, this is kind of like nobody asked me to do this, but I did it. And I saw that they were trying to get information out about local elections in Virginia as well as New Jersey. And so, you know, we were brainstorming, you know, what kind of social media apps can we do? What kind of campaigns can we create? And as an art major, one of the things that I was learning about is video and motion graphics. So I presented and created a project and presented it to our executive director, and she okayed it. And I spent a lot of my internship creating this video. And I will say for the organization, they were able to put it out on social media and push it out to the constituencies that needed to see it the most. And on my end, I was actually able to gain a lot of skill sets because I don't know if y'all are familiar with the Adobe Suite, but I did a lot through school, but I never was able to implement it in a way that combined data and like advocacy in my art. It was kind of more just like learning and just not really knowing what to do with it. So I was able to develop my skill sets as well as put it into practice for something that I was passionate about. So that's definitely something that was really rewarding in my experience. And I think now that I'm on the other side, I do a lot of management for our interns. And this is something that I see, like when you manage up, it's something that the people at the top actually appreciate a little bit more, just because we get a sense of where your passions lie. And when there are projects that are relevant, we know exactly what to assign to you. So definitely keep in mind, managing up, don't just think that as an intern, you just need to sit there and wait for things to be assigned to you. Do the things that are assigned to you, but also think about what you want out of this opportunity and vocalize it to whoever your manager is. And I think it goes a long way, and it shows a lot of initiative. And Michael, I think you go to the next slide. So this slide kind of just like pictures of me. I guess I'm kind of flaunting the people that I met through the internship in DC, but all this is to say, I would not have met these people and had these opportunities. I was able to introduce Representative Pramila Jayapal at our congressional reception as an intern, and that was like one of the coolest experiences in my life. But I think it's all about stepping up and once again, making it known what your interests are and where your interests lie. My executive director, Christine Chen, she went to a lot of events during APAM, Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. And a lot of those events were kind of invite only, or just, they weren't very publicly known. But during my internship, I remember just being like, oh, just can you take me? You know, it was outside of work hours. I just tagged along. And through that, I was able to meet like Helen Zia, who was an incredible author and advocate. You know, like through our programming, we're able to meet Secretary Norman Y. Mineta. And just, I think it's all about taking initiative. And I saw that my peers, you know, like they kind of wanted to go home after a long work day, which is totally understandable. And like, you know, like that's not to say anything negative about them, but I think it's really about just seizing the opportunities and making the most out of the time that you have in wherever you are, like whether it's at home or whether it's in another state, just taking hold of any opportunities, no matter how like tired you are, because once you leave that space, that's it. So that's another piece of advice that I have. And yeah, I think the last thing I want to touch upon, I just want to keep it brief, is documenting your work. Once again, as an intern, I kept a work log. So every single time I worked on a project or I went to an event, I just wrote it down for the sake of my manager, as well as just take it for myself. So I didn't really have to write down the events that I went to, but I'm able to, like, to this day, look back at everything I attended and everything I was able to experience, which is really helpful for me. And I will say that now that I'm in more of a managerial position for the interns, I definitely look back at the work logs that they keep whenever I'm writing a reference letter or a recommendation, because so many people pass through our office that it's hard to keep track of exactly, I don't even remember what I did, a month ago. So it's definitely really helpful for us when we're writing recommendations if you keep a very detailed and well-organized work log. And so, yeah, I think that's actually all I have. I just wanted to briefly touch upon my experience as an intern. It wasn't too long ago. It was literally like less than 2 years ago. So I'm open to helping take any questions, but thank you.
Thank you. So with that said, thank you, Julie, so much for presenting. We're now going to open for questions from our students who are on the webinar. If any have been waiting to ask Bernie with a question, please speak up or just chat it or type into the chat box, and we'll be happy to go through them. Or we can go through a few questions that have been prepared beforehand. All right, so one question that was emailed to me before this, thank you, Sheng Bang, for emailing it, this is for both of you, so when do you think would be the best time to start applying for internships?
Typically, internships, larger internship programs, they start to market their internships in fall semester, which means usually companies will start advertising their application process in either August, September, and usually close around October, November. And the reason for that is because depending on how many applicants they get, they usually interview and onboard during spring semester, and then it's usually a summer orientation. Now, if you're looking for a semester internship, that really depends on the company and also you seeking out that placement, because usually it's the semester before that they are applying for the following semester. Which is why I said several times, be mindful of dates and deadlines, because there may be dates and deadlines from your college department if you're receiving academic credit that you need to apply or let them know that you are interested in doing an internship experience at a specific site that next semester or that summer.
Thank you. Julie, do you have anything to add?
I don't think I have anything more. I think she's more of the expert in terms of timelines.
I guess another question would be, you both sort of touched on sort of the most on getting the most out of your internships, but if you can condense it into to one word of advice or just a couple statements on what do you think is the most important thing that you can do to get the most out of your internships?
For me, I definitely think the human component of it, the connection component of it is so important as an intern, right? Because when you're an intern, you're kind of tied to that organization, but not for that long. So while you have the opportunity, while you have those networks that the organizations have, you're obviously there for a reason, because you are doing work that supports their mission statement. Their mission statement means a lot to you. And so the people who are connected to that organization and the networks that are tied to the organization, this is your prime chance to kind of tap into those networks, make those friends and make those connections, find those mentors, whatever you need to do. Because once you leave that internship, yes, you still have a connection to the organization because it's in your resume, it's in your history, but it's just not as accessible because you don't have the people, right at your fingertips to lead you through and introduce you to people and just connect you in general. So I definitely think take advantage of that time to make the connections that you need to make.
I agree. I would say positive attitude. I think positive attitude will take you a long way, and it really kind of rolls into what Julie was saying, is that when you approach something with a positive attitude and I can do it, or I'm open to this project, or I'm open to building relationships. You have a positive energy around you that people will probably see as a complete benefit, and also be open to working with you. And then I would also say problem solve. I know you said one, but I would say be a problem solver in your role. Don't expect for someone to always solve those problems for you. Try to be proactive in your approach in solving problems and how you can communicate that out with your team and build your team.
Oh, thank you. Thank you both. These are some great answers. Actually, there are a couple questions in the chat that I'll go through. There are a question from Hua Zhang. Thank you for asking. Hua Zhang is asking, I graduated with a physics degree and I'm seeking for engineering opportunities. I find that it is hard for me to get an internship with engineering due to lack of skills or experiences. Are there any tips you can give to overcome this obstacle? So how do you overcome applying for an internship when you find that it looks like you have a lack of skills for this internship?
I think for me, the question would be, what do you want to do in engineering? Engineering is such a huge scope, and then that would determine how you would approach that challenge. Because sometimes we can't get past, it's like, I was an art major and now I want to be a doctor. Sometimes I can't get around that, right? I need to go to medical school, right? There's going to be some type of things that I might need to attain in order to get there. So depending on what you want to do in engineering would determine whether or not you might need to go back to school and get some certifications, or you might need to take some short courses, those kind of boot camp courses to get some training in that area. But it goes down to where in engineering you want to go. And I think part of it is asking yourself that question, knowing what's required of that field, and then determining whether or not you need education to fit those gaps, or experiences, and trying to get those experiences through possibly an externship or an internship, or a placement, or an entry-level placement. If it's not an internship, maybe an entry-level position, and working your way up into that field through experience. So, I mean, that's how I would approach it, I guess.
Yeah, and I think to add on, maybe this is just a general answer, but casting a wide net. If you look at the the description of the internship, and I noticed that in your question, you said lack of skills, or it's an obstacle, in quotes. If you believe that you're qualified for it and you think that you have the skill sets for it, you just don't have it on paper. I mean, I think you can still cast a wide net and try to apply for everything, right? Because you never know what they're actually looking for. If you land an interview and you're able to kind of talk about your skill sets in person, there's still a chance there. I don't think it's a black and white kind of answer. I think you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? So I think you definitely could get away with casting a wide net.
Yeah, I agree with you. Just to kind of continue that, maybe if, when you're saying, casting that wide net, but also connecting the dots, right? Connecting why you think you are experienced in this area, because sometimes people may not know how to connect the dots. You're connecting the dots in your background and your experiences. So being able to provide that opportunity for them as well. But definitely agree with that too.
Hi, thank you. We have another question. This is, how should someone prepare for an internship interview?
I think on my end, just because for our summer interns, we reviewed over 40. We had over 40 different applicants that we actually interviewed. I think the biggest thing on my end that I would give as a piece of advice is, we already see your resume. When you send in your paper resume, we already see that. So don't feel the need that you have to kind of vocalize your entire resume again, because the people on the other end, as long as you sent it in, everyone's already seen that. We want to kind of get a sense of who you are as a person, what your personality is, anything that you don't have on your resume, what can you tell us in this space, right? So I think in terms of preparing for an interview, like I know it's not helpful to say don't feel nervous, but I think the ones that stick out to me the most are the ones where it felt like I was just having a conversation with them I was just getting to know them. It wasn't like I'm sitting at a table, like, like swearing you down. The ones that stick out to me the most are the ones where the interviewee and I both feel comfortable and it's like an exchange. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I definitely agree with, being comfortable in your responses. I think initially what I do, because I teach the internship class and we do an online interview assignment, and what I practice with my students is that I encourage them to look into their field and Google what are some common interview questions in your field, right? And then if it's your internship site, what are some common interview questions? I obviously give them some of the common interview questions that I have. And then what I encourage them to do is, again, organize your thoughts by creating a Word doc or an Excel, however you want to do that, and type up your answer. Type up your answer to all of these questions that you may have on this sheet, so to speak, and start saying it out loud as if it's a script, and does it sound authentic? Does it sound good? Is it connecting the dots? Are you clear in what you're trying to tell this person? And is it clear and succinct? And part of it is, it's not so that you can walk into an interview and be a robot. It's part of the process of saying it out loud, getting comfortable talking about yourself in a positive way, and being able to organize yourself in a very succinct way so that when you are in an interview, you're remembering what this sounds like and it comes out naturally. And I think that's just a way, because there's many times that we leave interviews and we go, gosh, I wish I would have said this, or I should have said it like this, right? Well, we can avoid those thoughts by practicing ahead of time. And you can, get your friends to listen to you, be like, hey, I need you to practice with me, or, create a Zoom session and tape yourself and watch yourself answering these questions, and also being aware of your body language. I think it's important that if you saw me right now, I'm constantly moving my hands. I talk with my hands, but, if I were to go into an interview, I remind myself that I need to chill out with the hand movement, right? And I think part of it is being aware of your own body movements and your facial expressions when you cringe, or when your eyes kind of, crunch. What are those things that you need to be mindful of? I think those are the things to be mindful when you go into an interview. And then also dress comfortable. Please don't go to an interview completely uncomfortable because you could see it. Go in there, your authentic self. We're in a day and age where you don't always have to be in a suit and tie, or you don't have to be in heels and a blazer or whatever. But but know who you're interviewing for as well. So that's what my suggestion would be, to how to gear up for an interview.
Going off of, I really love both your answers. Going off of the being mindful of when you're walking into the situations, I guess what are some of the most common mistakes you see interns make, or like people applying for internships make?
What I've heard is not completing the application from employers. So like an employer will say, we need a letter of recommendation, a resume, and we need your CV, or if it's something to do with like projects, to show your projects, they forgot the attachment, or they did not submit their application by the deadline, and they submitted it after the deadline and are asking for some was it a leniency on that, and that's a mistake, because then people remember that as well too. So so just be mindful of how you come across. You don't want to be too pushy.
Yeah, I would second that. I think just not completing all the parts of the application, not reading carefully and completing it wrong. I will say that there was one candidate that we had selected actually as our intern, and then when we went back to go review their letters of recommendation, there were none. And when we reached out asking where they were, we didn't receive a response. So had they had all parts of the application completed, they would have received the internship. So that's just like one example that I have.
All right, thank you. I think we have time for one more question. So I see that we have it in the chat. So we've been talking about internships with the assumptions that they're located in the US. So are there resources for students to get internships internationally?
Interesting question. So we are dealing with that topic currently right now because that is actually being processed through our travel abroad office, our Center for International Education, because I can't speak to this completely because it is a fairly new topic on our end within the CSU system, because it's really hard to determine whether or not that company exists in another country, and do they abide by the laws and governance that we abide by here. And I'll give you an example. I had a few meetings with a few companies that actually provide these international internship opportunities. And some of the questions that I've brought up with their representative is, how many rapes have you had? How many lost students have you had? I know these are hot, sensitive topics, but these are questions that a university should ask in a possible partnership that they might be having with a company that's placing their students internationally. And, what is the insurance factor? What happens if a student gets sick abroad? And how are you handling that situation to bring that student back home here to the US? And so what does that look like? And so being cautious about buying into an experience with a company that may not have a relationship with the university is definitely room for caution and advised, making sure that you are dealing with a reputable company, a company that has your best interest and that also allows you to actually have a great experience. I wish I had more response to this because this is being discussed right now, whether or not we're going to support these international internships, and frankly, looking at the liability factor, because, ultimately our student safety is priority.
Yeah, thank you. I guess the only, my advice for this would be, I know during my undergraduate, a lot of students, they would go to the, even if we didn't major in this department, we'd go to the international relations department because they had a bunch more, a lot more connections to international organizations that were looking for interns, or go to the study abroad office and just see okay, what are some experiences that I could take advantage of, that I could use for credit, or that I could possibly get paid while I'm doing this, would allow me to travel. That I think is where I typically went if when I was thinking of going abroad for internship opportunities. Julie, do you have anything?
Not about international.
All right, with that said, thank you all so much for coming. We are gonna hang out for a little bit longer in case you have anything else to say, but this internship is, this webinar is officially over. So thank you all so much. Our emails are on the slides in front of you. If you have any questions, concerns, or anything, just please reach out to us. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.